Welcome to the Sixers PHLY Sixers postgame show here on a late night on a Monday night as the Sixers fall to the Portland Trailblazers in ugly fashion as to the title and thumbnail there, of course, on our show. Welcome again, my teammates as always, Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck. I'm back like Tobias Harris fighting through that illness. I'm back on the floor and we'll see what kind of effort I give versus the one that Sixers got out of him tonight. What's up, guys?
Look, buddy, if you gave an effort like that, I would not hold it against you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Kyle, what's going on?
Other than watching that disaster class and my headphones not currently working and dealing with a weekend of people in my mentions crying about Joel Embiid and 15 other things, I'm doing great. Happy to see your face again after it was just Derek and I, well, mostly just me with Derek as a bystander, mocking the entire city of Denver and state of Colorado on Saturday. So we got a little bit of a friendlier voice, friendlier face around here. So
Look,
good to see
every
you
now
today.
and then, when you know you want to cook, you just got to let you cook. And that's what I did on our last show.
Well, I'll jump in on the Nuggets conversation when they meet in the finals. How about that? We can talk to those folks in June. But
But
man,
they
this
got to
one
worry
first.
about winning a game in January
Yeah,
on this road trip. Let's
yeah.
let's not put the cart before the horse on that one.
Hey, man. Well, you're not wrong about that. This one was bad. 3 games in a row here along this 5 game road trip. Two more to go. First night of a back to back in Golden State on Tuesday night. But this one, after looking like at halftime and even first quarter, things were all right. They're playing a bad basketball team, and they're certainly going to fight for this. When you saw the fight in them against the Denver Nuggets, as you guys talked about on Saturday, and instead, in the third quarter, where we've seen it before, but not this bad, where the Portland Trailblazers came right out and thumped them in this one by 14, 36-22, going a big time run in that third quarter. And after that, this game was pretty much out of hand.
So, yeah. I mean, that sums it up pretty
I mean,
well.
as Kyle tweeted, outside of the offense and the defense, they held their own.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
so I don't want to go like, look, Derek has correctly said on the show before, and I think both of us have also echoed this, Devon. Like the games with Joel don't really matter in terms of how we're judging them as a contender and what have you. But I do think, and like we can give Tobias some grace individually for, coming back from an illness. Obviously, wasn't going to be at complete 100%, might have worn down, even if he's having a good shooting night, whatever. I do think that game like this kind of shows the separation between him as your third best guy and third best guy on a lot of these other teams, right? Like, or at least contending type teams, because essentially Tobias, if his shot isn't falling, has no real utility to fall back on. Like we say that he's a versatile player, but he's mostly just a versatile scorer, right? Like he can catch and shoot. You put him in the mid post, you put him off the ball, you put him on the ball, all that, but not a guy who can consistently generate shots for other people. Defensively, he's up and down, and certainly I've been in his corner on defense at times in the past. But this is a night where you're going to need somebody, and you would hope it'd be the third guy making a ton of money on your team to step up, and if they're not going to score, find ways to get the other guys going, right? Like they shoot like crap in the first half from three, didn't really get a whole lot better in the second half. And there was a point where you'd say, well, somebody's going to have to manufacture looks. And it just never felt like they got there outside of Kelly Oubre driving. And unfortunately, Kelly Oubre, the driver, was undone by Kelly Oubre, the everything elser. So that was that was a bit of a problem.
Yes, he
And
was.
you know, as we inch closer to the deadline, which coming up next week, which is crazy to think about that it's kind of snuck up on us a little bit.
Hmm.
I'm not convinced that I don't want to say margin moves because I don't think we've been advocating for margin moves. I'm not convinced that even high level role player trades are going to be enough to get it done for this team. the more I look at their depth, the more I have to watch guys like Kelly Oubre play and decision make. And I think about them being, Kelly's probably going to be, at least right now, like you're what, sixth or seventh most
Yeah.
guy on the team. Like that is just not tenable to me. And it might be tenable if, your sixth or eighth or ninth most important guy was a bunch of smart players. Like you had a bunch of other Nick Batum, high IQ type guys, but they just have a lot of guys who are like, you're praying that their shots are falling because otherwise it's a complete roller coaster night to night. And I just wish they had another decision maker that I really trusted on this team.
Sure.
One
And
of the
look, part of
things,
that, like, Tobias came back after, was it 2 or 3 games off? It's probably a lot to ask him to carry, even against a team as bad as Portland. It's a lot to ask him to kind of carry that in his first game back. You expect him to be a little bit rusty. If you're going to, I hate to say steal a game because Portland came in with, I think, 30th ranked offense and a shitty defense. So you should be able to beat them. I think they'd won like 4 of their last 15 games. But if you're going to win a game without Embiid and Maxey, you're either going to need your shots to go down or you're going to need to dominate the possession battle and out hustle. But none of that happened. They shot like 3 for $1 billion from 3. They might have made a couple in garbage time. I'm not really sure. I was getting my studio set up and quite frankly, not a whole lot. I know they made one. Turk made one. I do remember that happening. But none of
Our
that happened.
boy, friend of the pod, Turk Smith.
Sure.
Don't
Well,
forget
after
about Rick.
airballing too, like you're taking anything you can get right now. But they have nobody to create a shot. And yeah, they only made a couple of threes. A lot of that is because those were tough attempts because there's nobody to create any kind of space. I thought it was real discouraging in the third quarter how they got seemingly out hustled, how there was a lot of miscommunications on defense, how the bigs were seemingly lost almost every time down. But at the end of the day, to Kyle's point, the deadline's coming up here in a little over a week. I don't know that any of this really changes where I stand. And quite frankly, I wasn't 100% sure where I stood going in anyway, because this is a deadline where none of the pieces are perfect, where you are weighing whether or not you should try to wait for one to become available over the summer. And you have to judge how close you are. And we've just seen so little of Embiid and Maxey together recently that it's hard to have a great gauge. And that to me, like, we can talk a little bit about the East standings getting closer. The Knicks and the Cavs don't lose anymore. That is a little bit problematic. I think the Knicks right now are pretty much tied. I think they're actually ahead in the win column.
Yep.
So like that lead, quote unquote, over for the race for the third seed has dried up. But beyond that, you just haven't had a chance to really evaluate this team in a long, long time.
So as you guys talk about that, one thing that I wrote down in my notes for the first quarter was how Pat Beverly was the engine of what the Sixers were doing yet again. And of course, they were all inspired against Denver, nationally televised game, Embiid last second not playing and scratched from that game. And you saw how they played. You saw how Beverly played and the things that he had going on with Jamal Murray also. And that was the case again early on. But as you guys lay all of that out, I also put that there because let's see how sustainable it is once again against this team. When you also have Tobias Harris coming back, and again coming back from that illness, the flu, it's a lot to ask to carry. But it was more along the lines of who else can give. And while Kelly Oubre was giving that 20 points and driving to the basket aggressively, finishing, the outside shooting wasn't there. So was that going to lead to a win? Were they going to be winning plays? Were they going to be winning shots? And when you needed them the most, none of that was there, including the engine that was Patrick Beverly, because of course, maybe not sustainable. And the same thing with Kelly Oubre, Marcus Morris shooting the ball well. Same thing with Paul Reed early, but when it caught up to them in the third quarter and they needed it most, they need to figure something out once again to pull something out of a bag. It just wasn't there. And maybe that will change. I don't know. On the second night of a back-to-back with Tobias Harris, logging tonight for the Sixers overall 20 minutes. Let's see what he has tomorrow against a much better Golden State team who's still trying to get their way back to where they need to be respectable in the West. You guys are right. While we haven't seen Maxey and Embiid out there on the floor for some time now with these guys, it will crop up, allow us to have it crop up again of will they be able to win and have your two guys double teamed and things taken away, but that third player not necessarily giving. And as much as we praised everyone else from 4 on down to 15 for whatever their role was on any specific and given night. So far through these 3 games, it just hasn't been there to make you feel comfortable. And if that's the case, if it doesn't feel comfortable for maybe us three, or even for the listeners and the viewers out there, what's that going to mean? Not that he's basing just 3 straight games here of losses on a road trip, but what's that going to mean for the front office as they are up against it, now having to figure out what they want to do and potentially making a move, how big of a move or how little of a move along the margins to make sure that this team is good enough to, again, contend for that top 4 seed there in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, you know what the weird thing is about watching that game, and Kelly Oubre, you could argue, was, if not their best player, certainly in contention for that honor. To me, watching him play only drove home how little I trust him and how much they need to get more like high IQ team first guys in here. And the play that might epitomize Kelly Oubre's career in just a 5-second clip. End of the third quarter, you have a 2-for-1 situation. Kelly Oubre takes a dog shit pull up 3, and the ball hits the rim with exactly 24 seconds left. So Portland gets the ball, and you accomplished neither of your goals. You didn't get a 2-for-1, and you didn't get a quality shot. And that is basically the Kelly Oubre experience in a nutshell, right? Like, he had some great flashes tonight, right? Like, I think when he was a driver, when he was just attacking off the dribble and getting to the rim, that's when you saw the best out of Kelly tonight. Saw him go right at old Sixers player Matisse Thybulle, went right through him a time or two in the first half, had some success attacking him. And if he had just focused on the driving, that would have been great. But between that 2-for-1, between the fighting for Paul Reed for rebounds, and like, look, Paul has gotten in trouble himself with that in the past, or him and George Niang had it out, but I thought he was actually in the right this time, despite the fact that Nick Nurse pulled him immediately. We'll have to see how that's legislated amongst the team afterward, but I don't trust their guys that are going to make decisions. And look, like, however you want to spin it, Kelly, as someone who's going to have the ball in his hands, will be a decision maker for this team, whether you like it or not. Like, he's not just strictly going to be a catch and shoot, stand in the corner type guy. And that's also not how Nick Nurse runs his team and runs his offense. So, like, look, maybe we could say if they get some of the guys we talk about, right? Like, you get a Bogdanovich. I think you're upgrading the overall decision making. You're also getting shot making utility, things like that. But even still, like, it's not someone you can just throw the ball to, and that's a guy who can like run the offense for stretches. And I just have gotten more and more worried about the idea of, like, if a team takes Tyrese away, like, let's just say Joel is still rolling in a series, and with his health being a question mark and his, history of playoff health being a problem, definitely can't count on that for sure. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, Joel is healthy into the playoffs, but Tyrese as the lead guy is overshadowed. Well, then you're in a spot where if Tobias Harris doesn't step up, I don't know where does that come from? D'Anthony Melton going to shoot you through a series? Is Kelly Oubre going to get hot?
Is D'Anthony Melton going to be healthy?
Oh, that's a great point, Derek. Like, there are just a ton of question marks right now that, like, we can all sit here, and I'm sure there are plenty of people in chat that I'm skipping past right now that are like, look, it doesn't really matter, or it might be going the other way. Who knows at this point? I just don't feel good about where they're at right now, regardless of, the health of the big fella and how that impacts things right now.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, and to your point, I agree at some level. Like, D'Anthony Melton, you trust him. I forget who brought it up in the chat, but someone brought up that he's a play finisher, not a play initiator. Whenever he's initiating plays, you're either a bad team or in a bad spot. And the more he does that, the more his decision making comes into question. If he's just catch and shoot, cutting, you can live with it. If he's asked to do more, the warts really start to show. But Paul Reed, you don't really trust the decision making. I know some people with Marcus. I don't trust Marcus's decision making, especially if we factor in both sides of the court. a lot of the role players that you're currently relying on, you don't necessarily trust their decision making of, and it becomes a lot more. Then that's in part why people are like, well, you don't need depth. Well, no, I think you could really use one or two more depth pieces that you really rely on and really trust night to night. But it all looks so much worse when everyone has to step up out of their role and Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey aren't there to kind of make their lives easier and make their decision making easier. Um, I mean, where's Ash? Ash maybe taking the night off. What are they? 25-6, 26-6. I don't blame him, by
26
the
and
way, at all.
26-7.
There is something to that. Like they just anytime you ask any of these players to ramp up and step outside of their role, that's when the words go from like these are mildly annoying to holy shit, what are we doing here?
I remember when we left the other night, the Indiana game, and I know I said to I think I was talking to both of you at this point. They lose that game, and then it said that hey, this has a chance to kind of spiral a little bit in the wrong direction for them because of the Denver game upcoming and just being on the West Coast overall. And if Embiid was going to have the knee issue when he banged knees with Miles Turner that night, if this was going to be something that could have been problematic going forward, which we have now seen that he has not played in these two games, that this could start to go in the wrong direction. And as Derek, you mentioned the standings with the Knicks being tied because the Knicks have the tiebreaker now in the third spot in the East. It's not, of course, something that we need to panic about because it still is so much basketball to be played in the season. But it highlights exactly the point of what do you have to hold you up when certain players are out right now, and the trust is not there. Looking at some of the comments in the chat, of course, with the trade deadline coming up, we're going to get even more of that stuff like we haven't done it already before. But it's just going to highlight it, and now
But
that you lose, it's just going to again as you lose these three straight, and in the fashion that they lose, not the Denver game because they did fight for that one and they almost stole that one. But when you lose like they do tonight, if it happens again tomorrow night against the Golden State Warriors, I mean it's going to be the same conversation. It may look pretty much the same against that basketball team on the second night of a back to back.
But like you say, like when there are pieces out of the lineup, it's not like we're talking about Tobias Harris out of lineup here. You're talking about Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. There aren't very many teams that you're going to be able to take their two stars, their two all stars, they're one of them who's an MVP, and have a chance to compete on a night to night basis without them. So I do think we have to worry a little bit about overreacting here. And really, I don't even know if it really matters 'cause it's not like there's a star that's going to become available here in the next couple of days. That at least I don't think. So a lot of it's going to be how much do you keep that powder dry for the summer. But like, I don't know. It's just like if you would have told me that this team sucks without Embiid and Maxey before the season, regardless of who they acquired and Oubre and Morris and any other pieces, I'd be like, yeah, they probably suck without Embiid and Maxey and with Melton out and with Tobias just coming back. Like, I don't necessarily think anything that's happened here in the last 2 days or last two games has been a surprise. It's just there's so much uncertainty now with Embiid and that knee, with Melton and that back, that I don't know how to really move forward.
Well, you know what I never feel uncertain about, guys? Our good friends at Bagels and Co. Because Bagels and Co. offers huge Brooklyn style bagels made right here in Philadelphia. I eat bagels several days a week, and Bagels and Co. offers an average of around 15 to 20 types of bagels that they rotate seasonally. Really looking forward to whatever they got cooking up for this spring after some great Christmas themed bagels throughout the winter. And guys, if you're a cream cheese person like I am, they offer 30 different flavors of cream cheese that rotate throughout the year. They have themed cream cheeses for all the local sports teams. I know the Sixers have left a bad taste in your mouth recently. I can promise you the Bagels and Co., their cream cheese, even the Sixers themed cream cheese will leave a better taste in your mouth by a long shot. But just as important as that variety in the bagels and the cream cheese is the affordability. Bagels and Co. have kept their prices down as inflation goes up and up so that you can be an everyday customer, not just someone who comes in for a weekend splurge. And they even offer premium coffee at a superior price to most national brands and chains. So for the best Brooklyn style bagels made right here in Philadelphia, head to www.thebagelsandco.com/store-locator to find the closest Bagels & Co. near you.
All right. And after you spend some money there and you feel like spending a little bit more money because you're in a generous mood and you want to watch a good game, maybe for the big game coming up in the professional football, or even first game back here in Philadelphia after a 5-game road trip. You go to Game Time, because buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful at all. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. And with killer deals on last minute tickets and their lowest price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun that you'll have. Maybe you're out there in the Bay Area and you want to catch your team out there against Golden State. Well, again, flash deals, last minute tickets for you if you want to catch Philadelphia out there in the Bay Area. Easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area, not just hoops. Images of the seat views, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss, etc. there for you. Let me tell you about a couple of things that are also going on in Game Time as we talk about last minute tickets. If you forget about planning, if you don't need to plan months in advance and you can just spur the moment, Game Times has the deals on tickets right up to the date of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
So we do have a big super chat from Jake M that I feel like we should throw in here because it sort of dovetails with what we're talking about. Asking if Joe's injury is as serious as Ramona Shelburne made it sound on, I believe it was on NBA Today. Is it the right or the left knee? Is it non-contact or contact? I mean, you guys can sound off, weigh in with whatever you have been told on this. Here is what I would say, big picture here. I don't feel good about us being this far into this knee situation, and all we're hearing is the symptom and not the diagnosis. We have been at this for weeks now. It might be over a month at this point. I'm not actually, I have to go back and double check the dates on everything. But, you know, I've talked to people, not with the team, but around Joel, who prior to him returning the first time from the knee injury were saying things like, look, he's in a lot of pain and blah, blah, blah. The Sixers shot down how Ramona framed the knee injury the first time, as I believe she got some of the, Derek, you parsed that out, that some of the specific details were off there. But I think I'll use a term that Derek's used that he borrowed from Brett Brown. They feel like they're kind of half pregnant with this right now, where he's played through some of these games and then he misses time and the swelling flares up. And then you hear things like, oh, well, this is just something he's going to have to deal with the rest of the year. And it's like, okay, well, why? Why is this a thing that he's going to have to deal with the rest of the year? And if I'm supposed to take his, and by extension, their word that he's going to be about the team and the playoffs and all this rather than the 65 games and MVP and the immediate games and so on and so forth. Why are we doing this like piecemeal, day by day? Joel might play today, he might not. He wakes up today, we don't know what's going on. Like, why is this such a day-to-day thing? If in everyone's mind, it's like, well, he's just going to have to deal with this for a while. Bless you, Derek. And
oh, did I miss the mute button? Daggone it. I apologize. I have a mute button right here on my desk. I went to hit it. I guess I just missed it. So I apologize for that.
Yeah, you were like a 6-3-point shooter tonight. That's what
it
happened.
Is 1 a.m., man. I'm trying.
So
you're good.
I don't have an understanding of why this is the approach. Like
I just didn't have time to verify, hit the button because the sneeze was just coming, you know? I apologize.
This guy, man. Anyway, like the Denver game's a microcosm of it, right? Like Joel is leading the charge. Like, I'm playing. Don't put me on the injury report. Ramona's reporting that he's playing. All of a sudden, right before the game, oh, he doesn't look right in warm-up, so he's not playing. Okay, well, if it's that problematic, that it has to come down to like the last 20 minutes before a game and you're not listing it. Like the messaging is all over the fucking place. And I don't get it. And if it's really a problem, it needs to be addressed, because we can all sit here and probably agree, if he is not at least close to 100% by the time the playoffs come, they are fucked. They have no chance. They are not coming out of the East or coming close to coming out of the East with a compromised Joel. And that should be priority number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I don't really understand what the plan is right now.
Yeah, you just cannot go a month. I look it up. It was January 5th was the game against the Knicks when he initially bumped the knees. You can't go a month just listing out the symptoms. Not on a player who has that kind of a history on lower body injuries. Not for a player that's that important to your chances. Not when this has been lingering for as long as it has been lingering. And it is, it's not like it's the lack of reporters around the team why they're doing this. It's not like if you had more people than just Pompey on the road, they would change their tact on this. They had decided that they are going to list the symptoms and not give any further updates on what is causing the symptoms, the underlying problem. And it is, I don't think, the right way to go about it. I sometimes wonder why and who is directing that. But I don't think it is a road, being on the road issue.
No, and we all know what it is in terms of course, their chances, as you guys both talked about. If he's not available, then there's no shot. So if there's something that needs to be done in that time, and of course the conversations with him, for them to figure out what's the best way to path forward, what's the best way to move forward with this whole thing, and trying to get this right for the postseason, as they continue to talk about, as she reported, speaking about he wants to be right for the playoffs, not worried about the 65 games for the postseason acknowledgement as far as awards go. Well, then you need to figure out again how this is going to be. Is this something that he needs to just simply not play and rest for a decent amount of time while getting the rehab done and getting back at it? If it doesn't require surgery, then what is the recourse here? It can't just be, let's sit this game out here, let's sit this game. And then they have to, of course, say something and be a little bit more upfront, as you guys talked about, of how they're going to handle it. Because if he's not available, I think we all know that they can't win. And the one thing that Derek has said is you just want to have a full Joel Embiid going into the postseason. And right now, after banging that knee in early part of January and seeing this continue to be a problem now, then they won't have a shot. They will not have a shot, no matter what they do in terms of making any kind of deal.
Well, and by the way, the messaging hasn't just been, I'd say, unclear with Joel, right? Like Robert Covington's another great example. He leaves the lineup and it's like,
wow,
yeah, we'll have an update soon. We'll have an update soon. We'll have an update soon. And then we get an update and it's like, oh, he's out 3 to 4 weeks
with a bone bruise. Yeah. Remember at one point they changed his status as being out because of illness. Like it was no longer listed on the injury report as a knee. It was because of an illness. You're like, oh, maybe he's coming back soon. And then he hasn't been even close to returning since. So yeah, the injury reporting has not been great.
And it was a little better in D'Antoni's case, right? Like I think they were somewhat clearer on him, but they also made the claim like it's not connected to last year's back injury, and yet they're being ultra cautious with this one. And it's like, well, if it's not connected to a previous injury, I don't know. It seems like you wouldn't have to be kid gloves type treatment. Like he's a youngish guy who heals quickly, right? Like I don't know. The messaging has been all over the place for this team, and I have not been able to figure out why. I don't know if it's they didn't change medical staffs or anything, and it's mostly the same people in terms of the PR staff. So the messaging should be fairly consistent. And it'd be one thing if it was one guy. Like if this was just Joel, we would say, well, Joel wants to control, what's getting out there, right? Like star players have that kind of pull. But when Cove, that situation unfolds, it's like, all right, guys, what's going on here? Why can't we just get straight answers about the health of the guys who are out of the lineup?
And even just like go back to Ramona. Like she went from, he's not even going to be on the injury report. He's going to play, to a couple days later now being like, this is something he's going to have to manage all year. What's going on here? Like nothing happened other than him go through a walkthrough. Like, how is there not a better update than that? There needs to be. And look, they're still calling him day to day. Like it. But if it's something he's got to manage for the entire season, then you're acknowledging there's something underlying there that is not right. What's not right?
Yeah, and
Fans
look,
fans deserve that. I think fans do deserve that.
100%. And I sympathize with the fact that, look, there's a 7 foot tall, almost 300-pound man. There's
Something's always going to be wrong.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like owning a high performance sports car, right? Like when it's really going, it's like, oh my God, look how fast this thing goes. It can hit every hairpin turn, blah, blah, blah. And then something goes wrong and it's in the shop for 2 months and you're constantly worried about, what's going to go wrong next. So I get that. Like Joel's going to wake up some days, he's going to be in more pain than other days. The knee's going to swell for reasons maybe they don't have a concrete, crystal clear answer for on that day. But you can't just keep trotting out swelling. Like that's just not good enough. And for a team that their whole hope is riding on him, essentially, because without him, we all agree they're nowhere close to the title picture. I hope that it's at least clear internally, if it's not clear to us, whatever the plan is.
And that's crazy because it takes us back to a week ago today where he dropped that 70. And of course, we could have seen him staying out of the game and resting when he had 59 after 3 quarters. He comes back in. Were they ever really, I mean, we talked about it, of course, but were they ever really, really in danger of losing that game against the San Antonio Spurs? Probably not. But of course, because of the 70, getting his 60 is a career high, surpassing that 59, he came back in the game. That was a week ago. And he did what he did. As you mentioned, high powered sports car is going to give you 70. And then now he's got to sit out because there's something the difference is, of course, you can get some sort of loaner and you can still rev it up and go as fast as you always can. In this case,
really
he
taking
can't
this
just rev it
analogy
up.
to the next level.
Paul Reed revved it up as best as he could against the Denver Nuggets, but again, how consistent can that be when that guy is out there? And that's just not the answer. And of course, if you had the other guy who's next to him and Tyrese Maxey available and healthy, and Tobias Harris available and healthy, and the same for DeAnthony Melton, Robert Covington, and whomever else you want to mention, it's still not good enough. It still all revolves and rotates around him and what he is. So hopefully he's healthy enough where they can still make that push in the postseason, but somehow figuring out what they need to do, whether it's rest, not letting them play in an all-star game, things like that, and just being in control of, hey, if you're really about we need to be healthy for the postseason, then let's just make a concerted effort to do what we need to do that. Right now, it's the rest on the road trip. Maybe he comes back for the first game at home on Saturday, and plays in that game, and maybe he takes some other time off. I don't know, but again, it just made me think about going back a week ago. The guy just dropped 70 points on a bad knee.
Well, and that's the amazing thing. Like when he plays, like you can barely tell he's on a bad anything. He can
Yeah.
play through. When he's playing through injuries, he can still be effective because that skill level and that physical dominance is so high.
And and to that point, when he plays, and of course he wants to play, keep me off of the injury report for Saturday's game. What was it that stopped them, as you guys talked about? What was it that pulled them back?
Yeah, what did they see?
They
How
they
bad do
didn't
you have
like
to
what
look in
they
a
saw.
pregame warm
Right.
up for them to be like, no, you can't play?
Yeah. Right. Yep.
And by the way, guys, some fair comments in the chat asking, when exactly did Tyrese hurt his ankle? Like that was just kind of, he popped up on the injury report, and there's not been a whole lot of explanation for that. I don't recall seeing him roll it, certainly not in a recent game in a meaningful way that I'd be like, oh, yeah, he's been dealing with this. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for a guy who's played a gargantuan amount of minutes this year to get a couple of days off in the middle of the season. You just pack it in for a couple of games and let some other guys play. And you could argue, let some other guys show off and potentially showcase some trade value, but can't say there are many guys showcasing trade value tonight in that game against Portland. And hopefully this doesn't balloon into a situation with Tyrese too, as we're talking about some unclear messaging on the health stuff.
I didn't write anything. I thought I saw him tweak it at one point, but I didn't think, as you said, I didn't think it was anything that was worth noting because, put it in my notes just because it didn't seem like it was all that bad. It was more of a he flexed it, got to the free throw line kind of thing, and just shook it off. But if that one was the one, I did not put it in my notes, but I just vaguely remember him rolling it, but not enough where I thought he was going to miss any time. And as far as as far as up in their trade value, I guess Saturday was a was their one opportunity to really do that in that game against them, or Malcolm Brogdon trying to do that in this case to come to Philadelphia with the way he showed out against them tonight.
Got a lot of showcase games for
Oh
guys we
man,
talked about on the show.
oh man, Klay Thompson next.
Got Markkinen right after that. It's
hmm
the Nets.
hmm
So we'll get Royce O'Neal, Dorian Finney-Smith.
And
Listen, man.
Simmons.
Wow. Actually,
Wow, he almost had a triple double.
well, I'm not discussing him. Although there was a frequent listener of the pod, Jamie Fretz, who tweets at us quite frequently, had a
Yeah,
question tonight on Twitter after the game about, it's not even really a question. So somebody said that the Nets won the trade again tonight, which is, just, are we really going to do this again? It's like every few months we have to do this dance. But I think this part is true that Jamie pointed out. It sure would be nice to have those first round picks that they traded for Harden as part of the Ben package in order to potentially make a move now. Now the 2022 first that they would have moved, or that they moved and was already used, that would be as valuable as the player that was selected, obviously. But that 2027 pick would have been a potential chip and something to throw in or something to combine with other assets, depending on how you value the Clippers pick that they got, that 26 that they have from, what is it, the worst of OKC, Houston, and I'm blanking on the third team. Miami, maybe? Am I misremembering that?
Clippers.
That probably should have been obvious.
I
I
thought
just
you
couldn't
mentioned
remember
it
where
It
the
was
pick
so
actually.
obvious I was starting to second guess myself, but I'm also
Yeah.
second guessing myself because it's 1:15 in the morning and we just watched slop basketball.
So Jamie pointed that out, and look, you wouldn't have been able to use all of them in one trade because of the various trade rules. But bottom line, it would definitely be nice to have, that 2027 pick as just one extra chip in the war chest, so to speak, to potentially make one of these moves.
Well, since you brought that up, plus the other Nets guys,
But
we'll
I
just
also
say
don't
it.
think like we talk about that. I don't think there's going to be a player available that's worth trading 4 or more first round picks anyway. So I'm not really sure it's going to be that much of a hinge. I think the biggest question mark isn't going to be who should you go all in for? It's is there anyone worth going all in for, or should you wait until the summer when you do have 5 picks, when you might be able to get Devon's cousin to get asked out, all of those things.
Come on,
Um,
Devon, get on it.
come on, you have one job.
So that's
Um,
what the bull RJ was coming at me. Yes, and I have one job. What am I supposed to do? I don't work for the Sixers, man.
but I mean, like I don't think that's necessarily going to be a hindrance because I just don't see anyone like we can pipe dream about marking him, but that's a pipe dream. He's not walking through that door. I don't think there's going to be anyone necessarily worth giving up 4 first round picks for.
Yeah, no, and we'll see because it is going to be something that we have to. It got here fast. As much as we've talked about the trade deadline, and Kyle, when you said it next week, I'm like, damn, next week. But yeah, next Thursday. Next Thursday. This is going to be around that time, man, when we start to hear some more things and talk about a few more things that potentially crops up, and where do they go from here? What name is this? But we haven't heard anything new as far as other names that are out there that could become available. The only thing that really has happened now is Julius Randle's going to be out with a separated shoulder for the Knicks. Didn't skip a beat, of course, tonight going against the Charlotte Hornets, but we'll see what that means going forward for them. Do they do anything else? That was already being discussed anyway, that would do anything to open up a spot, maybe to add another body to their roster. And does the team even trade for him? So, and now with the Knicks right there in the mix with the Sixers for that third spot now in the Eastern Conference. It's going to be really interesting to see how they attack things, how they go about their business here during this trade deadline.
Which, by the way, you bring up the trade deadline. I do want to bring up, we're not promoting it full bore yet, but we are going to be doing a live show from Chicken and Egg in Marlton on the day of the deadline. It is going to be a 2-hour event. So from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern, come out, hang out with us, watch us react in real time to the trade deadline. It'll be a good time. Like I said, we will have more details on that, but I just want to throw it out there. Look, if you're up at 1:15 in the morning watching us talk, you should get a little bit of a sneak preview of what we will be talking about here in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and I believe that will be the first time Derek or Devon, one of you might know, but I believe it'll be the first time we'll have all four, the three of us, along with Rich Hoffman, hopefully.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's been
certainly on a
confirmed.
show. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the four of us will be on that show, and so we'll be, working all the phones to lock down some trade rumors. We'll be discussing all the NBA stuff going on, even if the Sixers don't end up making a move. But so was that the 8th, the 9th? When is that? I wish I knew
It's the 8th.
February 8th at Chicken and the Egg, Marlton. So obviously, we'd love to see as many of your beautiful faces as possible. And for those of you that don't show up, love to see you in the chat as well, for sure.
Yes. Al says chicken and egg. Yes, the chicken and the egg. Al, come on out there. Show your face again. Come hang out with us.
Love to see you again now.
2 to 4. 2 to 4. It should be a fun time.
Show your face, show your love. Wait, no, that's a different ad read we're not doing today.
Oh, all right. It's all good.
Do you guys have anything else from that
in the
game
morning.
that jumped out at you, or what?
That jumped out? No. When you shoot 5 for 29 from 3, you're going to have a hard time winning without Embiid and Maxey. I mean, the defense jumped out. Like, Portland's a terrible offensive team, and they got whatever they wanted. But everyone's just so overextended that, like, I'm really trying not to freak out too much. 95% of my concern comes from the fact, look, a week ago, you were on this show saying that you didn't fear the Bucks in a playoff series. Even with Doc, even with all that. I don't necessarily think that evaluation's wrong. There's just so much, there's a dark cloud hanging over the team right now. And that includes a lot of uncertainty. And that uncertainty makes people panic because there's already uncertainty that you didn't know how they were going to perform in the playoffs, that you didn't necessarily trust playoff Embiid at 100%, that you didn't know how Maxey would respond to that attention. Now you throw in more uncertainty with the injury status, with even Melton's injury status, and not having necessarily the role players that you're comfortable in. And I think people are panicking. And the story of the Sixers season is Embiid plays, they win 5 in a row. He misses some times, they lose 3 in a row, and we all panic. Then he comes back and they win 5 in a row, and we're all like, yay, everything's great. And it's just such a roller coaster. And it's all then underscored by the fact that we just haven't had a playoff run where he's really given us what we hope for. And a lot of that comes down to injuries, and injuries now is a big talking point around this team. And it's just 1 year. I just want to, and it doesn't even matter if we go into the postseason where he's injury free, because then he'll just get elbowed in the eye socket or some weird shit will happen. Like, we're always waiting for that shoe to drop. And I think a lot of people right now are worried that this is the first sign of the shoe to drop, and we just don't know. And part of that, shame on the Sixers for not being open enough with the injury. Part of it's the fact that this is now, there's been 2 stints of him being out multiple games with the knee. And it's just, it kicks off everyone's worst instincts.
Wow. We have at least one dose of positivity in the comments. A super chat from our boy Devon, aka Schoolboy Beats. Ricky Council needs more minutes. Our guy, Rick, with some
go get him, Rick.
Insanely awesome dunks in extended garbage time tonight. So that was certainly fun to see. I would add on to that to quickly touch on the game that is the headline of the show. I thought Mo Bamba looked okay in his return to action tonight. I actually thought he tried hard, like played hard. And that, as Nick Nurse has said, is one of his biggest problems, is like the guy's got the tools. seeing him fly back in transition to contest a Jeremy Grant 3, I was like, man, he's like a completely different guy than somebody we've seen in the past.
Yeah.
So some decent moments for him.
He had a couple of moments where he got beat, sort of like ball watching, and that's fine though. The effort was there. Yeah, sure. If that's what we're going with as a positive, it's pretty dire straits, but I don't disagree with you.
Nah, it was a play with Tobias Harris, forced the pass to him in the lane. It was really crowded in the third quarter, shoveled it to him. He came back out, shot the fadeaway jumper, shot clock violation. Tobias shouldn't have passed it to him. And I thought Nick Nurse was going to pull Tobias and get him out of the game because it was about 6 minutes to go. And instead, he took Mo Bamba out. So I'm like, I wonder if he's really putting that blame on Mo Bamba. But then Bamba came back in and he continued to play well. And he has the first game back after missing that time. He looked pretty good in the minutes that he was out there. Has a few of those Space Cadet moments from time to time, but for the most part, he looked pretty good. Devon also says, can we just get a bench of 46, 36, 78 basic players? 46.
I feel like the whole league would like to have those type of players.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit difficult.
Oh man, absolutely. But hey, tough loss, ugly effort against that team. First night of a back-to-back. They're in Golden State, take on Steph Curry, and Draymond Green is back in the Golden State Warriors on Tuesday night. So should be an interesting one against that team. They had the night off. Milwaukee lost first game for Doc Rivers. They lost to the Denver Nuggets. New York won, as we mentioned. Boston also, did Boston play? Yeah, they beat New Orleans by 6 at home. So everybody right around the Sixers, those were their final scores for them. Sixers dropped theirs tonight. They're now 29-16 on the campaign.
All right, everybody, we ready to get out of here? Should I say goodbye to our peeps in the middle of the night here?
Well, folks,
I ain't got shit left.
Got to tell them good night now.
Some of us, anyway. Would like to send a giant thank you to everybody who's with us, especially our fellow East Coasters. So Jay of the Jungle has been maybe the most active chatter tonight. He's been taking on all comers in the comments.
Fighting everybody.
Jay of the Jungle. We got Jason Hines, You a Fraud, Sam, Cannoli, RC Campbell, the Bull RJ.
What up,
Ira,
RJ?
Jake M, who gave us a giant super chat. Thank you to Jake M. Davon gave us a couple of super chats toward the end. Thank you, my friend, for stopping through as always. Eric Schmidt, Kane, Furious. I know Al, the 2-minute warning was in here. So what up, Al?
What up,
as
Al?
always. Let's see. I'm still going up here. Dude, I'm sorry. My brain is, if I miss people or I don't get Elaine, we have Liam Stevens. I'm saying Cannoli again because I wish
what up, Cannoli?
more people named Cannoli in here. We had another British. I know we have Puppas, but I believe there was someone named, there we go, Big British Lad, who said 6:12 a.m. LOL. I really stayed up to watch this game. So Big British Lad.
Getting ready for work. Look at that. What up?
We really appreciate you being in here with us tonight. Guys, if you have not already, Finney Chase, there's another one. I'm cutting the names off there. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the bell icon so you get notifications
Ding.
each and every time we go live. I imagine all you guys do who are in here, but I'm just saying it anyway. Hit the thumbs up button on your way out because it'll give Derek an extra boost of caffeine that he is surely going to need tomorrow after staying up late. We will see you guys tomorrow night after the Warriors game. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
We all silly like the mayor.